Two Ukrainian soldiers walked into the city of Kostiantynivka on foot, carrying banners with Volodymyr Zelensky's portrait. They thought they were on a combat mission. They were actually walking into a trap, one that their own command had set for them. The Russian Defense Ministry said two Ukrainian servicemen had been captured while attempting to infiltrate Kostiantynivka to create the illusion that Ukraine's troops remained present there. The question that hangs over this entire story is whether the Kremlin's announcement of capturing the city was itself a political performance, or whether the real humiliation belongs to the Ukrainian commanders who sent their men into a fight they'd already lost. Russia announced the full capture of Kostiantynivka on July 3, 2026. The heavily fortified city served as the southern outpost of Ukraine's principal remaining defensive line in Donbas, centered on Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. That announcement dropped like a bomb across the front, and what followed exposed a breakdown on multiple levels at once. The battle for Kostiantynivka had become the central effort of Russia's Donbas campaign. The city is the southern anchor of Ukraine's remaining fortress belt, stretching from Kostiantynivka through Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, and Slavyansk. Lose this anchor, and the entire belt risks unraveling. In terms of size, Kostiantynivka is the largest city captured by the Russian army since the spring of 2022, following the capture of Mariupol. That's not a minor battlefield footnote. That's a strategic shift that changes the geometry of the entire Eastern Front. So, how did Russia take it? Not with a single overwhelming assault. Russian forces had transitioned from a traditional frontal assault to a combined campaign of infiltration, logistical isolation, and attrition, designed to force a Ukrainian withdrawal rather than a rapid breakthrough. This is the Russian method in 2026. Grind the logistics, encircle the supply lines, and make the position untenable before the final push. Kostiantynivka is a continuous urban area measuring approximately 6 by 12 kilometers. It has 20,000 buildings, about 1,000 of which are multi-story. In modern warfare, each multi-story building is transformed into a mini-fortress with a developed underground section. Fighting through that kind of terrain is brutal, slow, and costly, which is exactly why the battle dragged on for months. The capture of the suburbs of Kostiantynivka at the end of April 2026 meant that the Ukrainian garrison in the city was doomed. Once the outer ring fell, the inner defenders were fighting with no realistic prospect of relief. The city hadn't just been attacked, it had been strangled. Now here's where the story gets darker for Kiev. A soldier of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skala said that command was unaware that a significant number of positions had fallen under Russian control and continued sending groups to locations that were already occupied. Read that again. Command was sending men to positions that Russia already held. That's not a tactical setback, that's a catastrophic intelligence failure. Prisoners say that, faced with hopeless encirclement, many chose to surrender, sometimes in entire groups. And when they did surrender, what happened next was its own separate outrage. Captured soldier Vladimir Kupenko, also of the 425th Regiment, said that after his group laid down their weapons, Ukrainian units launched drone strikes against the house in an attempt to eliminate those who had surrendered. Russian fighters evacuated the prisoners to a basement and extracted them under fire. Ukrainian soldiers surrendering to Russians were then targeted by their own side from the air. That is the ground-level reality that no official statement will acknowledge. Other accounts mention the pursuit of deserters, beatings, and forced transfers into assault units, adding further stress and undermining trust in commanders. Trust, once broken in a combat unit, is nearly impossible to rebuild quickly. And on a front where trust in command already meant walking into Russian-controlled buildings, the damage runs deep. This is precisely why the fake assault operation matters so much. It wasn't just a tactical blunder. It was a window into a command structure that had lost its grip on reality at the front. Two soldiers said they were sent into Kostiantynivka knowing it was controlled by Russian soldiers, and that their comrades were killed while they were kept alive and treated with respect. The men identified themselves as Evgeny Mosin and Sergei Stolyarsky of Ukraine's 425th Separate Assault Regiment, known as Skala. The video shows them holding Ukrainian banners bearing photographs of Zelenskyy and military commander Alexander Syrsky. They then drop the banners, unfurl a Russian flag, and thank Russia's 4th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade for taking them prisoner and sparing their lives. Whatever one makes of the stagecraft in that footage, the underlying facts are verifiable. 2 soldiers from a named Ukrainian unit were captured inside a city their own command had claimed was still under Ukrainian control. Now here's what makes this a genuinely open question, and not just a clean Russian propaganda win. On July 3rd, Putin claimed Kostiantynivka had been captured, and that the Russian forces had made significant advances in the Donetsk region. The Institute for the Study of War refuted these claims, and reported that Russian presence in Kostiantynivka was limited to small groups of saboteurs scattered among Ukrainian positions. Ukraine's general staff rejected the Kremlin's version of events. In response to the claim made by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Ukrainian armed forces declared that Ukrainian units continue to resist Russian attacks in the vicinity of the town, as well as the activity of sabotage groups inside. And if you want to see how this information war plays out, whether Russia can convert a contested urban fight into a genuine operational advance toward Kramatorsk, subscribe now, because the next phase on this front is already accelerating, and the stakes are about to get far larger. Ukraine's 425th Separate Assault Regiment stated that its units had completed their combat mission and cleared the central part of the town, with the regiment stating that the Ukrainian city of Kostiantynivka was once again flying the blue and yellow flag. That's a direct contradiction of Moscow's narrative, coming from the very regiment whose soldiers had just appeared in Russian captivity videos. The same unit is simultaneously the source of the surrender footage and the source of the recapture claim. That tells you how fluid and contested this situation truly is. The consensus among Western analysts is that the tactical situation is deteriorating for Ukraine, but there is currently no evidence of a large-scale operational collapse. Russian gains remain incremental despite sustained pressure. That's the honest center of this story, not a clean Russian triumph, and not a Ukrainian victory either. A brutal, grinding fight where the information battle is being waged as aggressively as the physical one. What's not in dispute is what happens if Russia consolidates control. The loss of Kostiantynivka creates conditions for a shift in the front line toward Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, the next major defensive line, which Ukrainian command intends to hold at any cost. Russian forces have since expanded their zone of control northwest of Kostiantynivka toward Drushkivka and entered the nearby settlement of Alexeyevo-Drushkivka. Moscow also says Ukrainian defenses in Krasny Liman, northeast of Slavyansk, have been broken, and that Russian troops are eliminating remaining pockets of resistance. Whether those claims hold under scrutiny or dissolve like the July 3rd announcement will determine the next chapter. The fake assault operation was, in miniature, a portrait of everything that's gone wrong in Ukraine's command communication. Soldiers sent to positions already held by the enemy. Surrendering troops struck by their own drones. A city simultaneously described as liberated by Moscow and defended by Kyiv. And caught in the middle, named soldiers from a named regiment, captured on camera, becoming the image that Moscow wanted and Kyiv couldn't prevent. Russia's general staff claimed Ukrainian forces suffered heavy personnel losses in an attempt to demonstrate alleged gains in Kostiantynivka, with roughly 13,500 troops eliminated. The claim was framed as the direct cost of Ukraine demonstrating fake gains, with losses including 14 tanks, 283 armored fighting vehicles, and 200 field artillery pieces. Those figures come from Moscow and cannot be independently verified, but even half that toll would represent a catastrophic cost for a public relations operation. The deeper damage isn't on the map. It's in the morale of soldiers who now know that surrender might earn them a drone strike from their own side, and that their command might be sending them into positions already overrun. That kind of institutional distrust is harder to fix than any single defensive line. What this fight ultimately proved is that information operations have become inseparable from the ground war in Donbas. Putin announced a city. Zelenskyy denied it. Soldiers appeared on video proving the denial was incomplete, and the front kept moving regardless of who won the press cycle. Does Ukraine's command structure have the intelligence clarity to prevent this kind of disaster at Kramatorsk? And if Russia does consolidate the full Kostiantynivka axis, can the fortress belt hold without its southern anchor? Tell me what you think. Drop your answer in the comments below, and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next report as this front reaches its breaking point.